Hey, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven, where we bring to you insights and experts about various topics in business to help you grow. And today I have with me Fred Miller, and we're going to be talking about how to improve your presentation skills by giving you some effective presentation tips.
Nice.
Hello to you. This is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven. And with me today is Fred Miller to talk about effective presentation tips. Fred, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Edwin.
Yeah. So tell me, I know we connected on LinkedIn and I've looked at your website, which is No Sweat Public Speaking. I'll be featuring that throughout the podcast and the YouTube video here. For your viewers to find out more about you. How did you get started in public speaking and the world of presentations?
Well, many years ago, I used to see all these great speakers like Zig Ziglar. I guess I'm dating myself now. Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I wish I could do that. And I joined Toastmasters. For those who aren't familiar with Toastmasters, it's an international organization that teaches public speaking and leadership skills. So I was in Toastmasters for many, many years. I was in a number of businesses, but I saw the value of public speaking. And my mantra is speaking opportunities like this are business, career, and leadership opportunities.
Yes.
And no one's ever questioned that statement. And that inability and that fear of public speaking holds so many people back from reaching their potential. So that's basically it.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think public speaking is a critical skill in business, whether you do it professionally or not. I think it just elevates everything that you do, whether you're a formal public speaker or not. I think it just adds to your repertoire of skills. So at No Sweat Public Speaking, how do you engage with businesses and business people, and what do you teach them?
Well, I teach them how to, I'll give you my elevator speech. I'm Fred Miller. I'm a speaker, coach, and a writer. The title of my first book is No Sweat Public Speaking. Businesses, individuals, and organizations hire me to improve their networking, public speaking, and presentation skills. And we're going to talk about elevator speeches, and I think that's relevant because we're talking about Zoom calls. You get on a Zoom call or anything, somebody says, before we get started, let's go around and tell us who you are and what you do. And an elevator speech is a mini presentation, and most people mess it up. It's a speaking opportunity, but you want people to know exactly who you are and what you do, because if they don't, how are they going to refer you? And they're certainly not going to hire you. So it's all relevant to the Zoom world now. This is how we're all meeting.
Yeah, there's no question that, since the lockdowns and the virus situation, we've had to go to an online world. And I know that everybody's kind of looking at like, okay, how do I use it effectively? And what you're saying is, here's just another public speaking opportunity, but use it effectively and have your elevator speech. So I think a lot of people have heard the term elevator speech. How would you define that to maybe somebody who's not in sales and doesn't know what that means?
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, it's a mini infomercial because we all want to know who we are and what you do. And it's fascinating. I looked you up, you deal in branding. Well, it's an opportunity to brand yourself.
Yes.
If you're working for someone else or if you're working for yourself. Let's talk about Zoom for a moment. And it's all about stories. Presentations are all about stories. Make a point, tell a story. So my story about Zoom, because I've been doing a lot of writing and speaking on it, we were in South Africa in March. We got back March 17th. And the world we came back to, 300 people on a plane for 16 hours. I was sure I must have had COVID. Got off at Atlanta. They took our temperature, gave us some papers, said, go home and quarantine. And I didn't do anything for about a month. I was really bummed out. But then I started getting on Zoom calls, and it's like, whoa, this is not the way to give presentations. usually, Edwin, when I'm speaking, I'm the only one in the front of the room. I'm looking at everyone's face. Everyone's looking at me. A Zoom call, everyone's looking at everyone else. And some people don't have a clue. I mean, I've looked up more noses than an ear, nose, throat doctor. It's really discouraging. And the biggest point I want to make here is that in terms of communication, whether a formal presentation or just talking one-on-one, nonverbal communication, facial gesture, facial expressions, gestures, body movement surpasses verbal communication. And when people are looking like this and they're looking like this, well, it looks like I'm from Mars, right, with my ring light, and they're looking like this, it's very discouraging. In fact, one of my tips now is if you're a presenter, have everyone turn their screen off and their sound. Because here's the biggest thing. It's really important. We cannot multitask. If I'm looking at your background, if I'm looking at you, I'm not listening and watching the speaker. And the best example I can give to prove this point is if you ever watch cable news, any channel, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, there's a little ticker tape comes along the bottom of the screen. If you're reading that ticker tape, you have no idea what they're talking about. And to prove that, as soon as the commercial comes on, the ticker tape is gone. Advertisers would never pay big bucks to have you not watch their commercial. And if you've got 24 different screens and I'm looking up, I say, oh, what's that helmet in the picture in the back of Edwin over there? And what's the picture behind his head? It looks like there's a door. Well, I'm not watching and listening to you.
Yeah.
So it's something that people, the other things it's worth mentioning, lighting. A lot of people got bright light behind them. You can't even see the person. Sound. If you've got an older computer and you're sitting back, it sounds like you're in a tunnel. So those, and the other big thing I just mentioned a little bit, background. You know, I see people and they'll be holding their books up and they'll have all kinds of junk behind them. I was watching a medical person on TV once. I think HIPAA would have shut her down if they saw all the stuff that was on her whiteboard behind her. The best background you can have is the one nobody notices. And if you watch the professional ones on television, they're usually blurred because if they were crystal clear, you'd be trying to pick out that detail. You know, what building is he standing in front of, and what was that sign say? Does that make sense to you, Evan?
Absolutely. So, okay, so now we're in this Zoom world. You came back from South Africa. Obviously, the world did change in March.
Yeah.
And so you kind of circled back in terms of reinventing how you were going to help people do presentations. What do you find is the biggest struggle in this brave new world of Zoom that most business people are having in elevating their game and doing presentations?
Well, I think it's all the distractions. Again, we can't multitask. So if I'm looking at all those windows, you know, kind of like in Brady Bunch or Hollywood Squares, that's really distracting. You got to turn those off. The other challenge for a presenter is if you're showing slides. How many times have you been on a Zoom meeting? Somebody says, can you see my screen? Can you see, what are you looking at now? Yeah. Now, actually, this is an interesting time to have this conversation. There's a new piece of software. It's Mac only right now, and it's going to be PC. It's called MMHMM. You know, it's a terrible name. But this literally, it integrates with Zoom and some other platforms for online presentations, but it can actually put you in the room. It can be the same thing. But doing it on Zoom is just, it's really, really tough. We've got the attention span of a gnat. And if you have all these shiny objects flying over and, oh, who just came on there? Wait, they're screaming blank. That's terribly distracting. And now another possibility, let me give this hint, pre-record your presentation and then play it, and then you can stop it and come in for Q&A and things like that. But there's some real challenges with Zoom. There's no doubt about it, but I think we have to meet them. And that new application is a great step to that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we have a small business owner, entrepreneur, network guy, you know, whatever. There's going to be a lot of people coming out of, the lockdowns, all excited to meet again. We are going to get back to live presentations. I live here in Las Vegas. This town was built on convention, so it's got to get back to business. What if you were to sit down with a guy going, "Hey, I got to give a presentation, and I've never really done anything at this scale or at this level of importance," what would be 3 top tips that you would give somebody to help them do a better presentation, and if they didn't have those?
Oh, good. Thanks for asking again. Well, first of all, you want to talk to a meeting planner and find out about your audience. What do they expect?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have been to conventions in Vegas, and I've seen presenters like, why did you invite this guy? And some of them get paid big bucks. One guy, I'll never forget, he was talking about his family business. All he did was talk about himself. So another gal do that too. But find out what your audience wants, gear your presentation to that, find out what your time limits are. And I like using slides. I like using slides the proper way. And the proper way is images. Because we have three learning styles. Most of us are visual learners, 65% of us. 35% are auditory, learn by listening. You mentioned a podcast. And the rest are kinesthetic. I've got a friend here, Edwin, if he were sitting here, he'd fill a ream of paper. And if you can appeal to 2 of those learning styles, that increases the odds the audience will get it. And get it is the bottom line of all communication, verbal, written, or visual. They may not agree with you, but if they don't get it, you can't have a conversation going forward. So you put up slides that are universally understood images, just that image, then make the screen go blank, and then you speak to that slide. That also keeps you from having to look at notes. How many times have you seen a talking head and he's looking? Nobody comes to read your presentation in terms of bullet points. Nobody comes to hear somebody speak and read their notes. So you have high quality images. You know your stuff. You want to speak conversationally like we're doing here. You want to have a strong opening and a stronger closing. This is a good point too. There's something called the law of primacy and recency. And it says the audience best remembers the first and last things you say and do. So the last thing I say and do is the first thing the audience remembers. Right.
Okay, that's a good point. I think probably most speakers worry about the middle. How do I fill the middle? The stuff in the middle of the Oreo, but really it's the edges of the Oreo cookie that people hold on.
I love that analogy. I'll steal it. Okay, sure. Because first and last thing. But you want to have good content too. If you don't have good content,
of course.
But you got to have good content, and in that content, 3 to 5 main points. Make a point. Tell a story. I mean, you're going to remember the story I told you coming back South Africa, 300 people, and they take my temperature. That's a great story. People remember stories. Nancy Duarte is a presentation guru. She did the slides for Al Gore in Inconvenient Truth. And she says, personal stories are the emotional glue that connect your audience to your message. Mm-hmm. Because when I tell a story, everybody's going back when they first experienced Zoom, like, oh my gosh, that's right. I remember I got on there. I couldn't figure out how the software or anything, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's all about stories, and everyone's got a backstory. Everyone has a backstory. You've got a story of how you're in Vegas, or were you born there?
No, not at all.
See, there's a story of how you got there, right?
Absolutely. There's definitely a story of how I got here. People don't end up in Vegas by accident.
No. And they don't extradite to other countries or cities. So that's why you're staying there, right? You have that witness protection program?
No. You take a look at Las Vegas. I tell people all business roads lead to Las Vegas. Eventually, if you're in the business world professionally at a high level, sooner or later, you're going to come to this city to do networking, a presentation, or some type of convention.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was in the coffee service business for many years, and we had a national convention at the Hilton there. I remember, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
you're right about that.
Yeah. So I don't have to go to anybody because they're all eventually going to come see me in my town.
Got it.
So it's a perfect, if you wanted to find the perfect networking town, at least on the West Coast, I would say Las Vegas is that city. Moreover, we don't pay any state income tax.
Oh, nice.
So there's also the financial advantage of coming to Las Vegas.
And the climate, of course.
When you are working with the businesses, tell me what typically are the types of businesses that reach. There must be an audience that tends to gravitate towards your services. Is it medical? Is it coaches? Is it authors? Like who comes to you and why?
I think basically it covers everything. It's kind of interesting. A lot of individual consulting or coaching. And it might be somebody who's working at a company, and the call typically is like this. They say, I'm sick and tired of people who don't work as hard as I do. They're not contributing as much to the company, but they're getting recognition. They're getting bonuses. Sometimes they're getting promotions because they're speaking. And they're not that good, but they're doing it, and I'm not. Can you help me? Yeah. And but this is for anyone. And probably my best clients are the ones who are already super successful. I remember an attorney called me once, and he said, actually he was calling about PowerPoint presentations. And he says, are you a novice or are you a guru in this? I said, I don't know. You tell me. I gave him a link, and he came back and he said, I'm pretty good at presenting. I'm probably about a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. I want to be a 13. And this guy was good. I mean, this guy was making a lot of money already, but those who know what they don't know, who know the value of coaching. And a good coach will listen and ask questions so you hear yourself. And I always tell people, professionals have coaches, amateurs don't. The best of the best have a coach. But the guy who thinks he can do it all by himself, that's crazy. I mean, I'm rewriting one of my books now. I've learned so much since writing No Sweat Elevator Speech. I'm rewriting it. I hired a professional editor, and it's awesome. I mean, this book is going to be so much better because she knows so much more that I don't know. When you go and you take a bunch of tests and you find out what you're good at and what you're not good at, and you start working on things you're not good at. No, that changes. You hire someone to do that, and you do what you're good at because you probably love it. And I got to tell you, the first time she sends back the manuscript, I'm looking, I'm thinking, I'm an idiot. It looks like I didn't know punctuation. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. She says, no, that's my job. That's what you hired me to do. Mm-hmm. And she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. Now, but that's how it is in the world. You hire people who can really do their job well. But communication is so important. Give you another example. We have a local college that does a survey every year of businesses. And one of the things, or the main thing, that they find lacking in new hires is communication. So you could be the best electrician, attorney, accountant, auto mechanic, whatever it is, but if you can't communicate, you're not going to go anywhere. You got to communicate with your fellow workers, with customers, with your boss, with underlings. That inability to communicate is going to affect your career negatively. And the big companies know it, and they are putting money and time into training people. I mean, I've just been very fortunate. I'm observant of this. I had a new furnace put in, and these young people came and did the furnace work and checked with me and asked questions, and just outstanding, their communication ability. They were technicians. They did stuff I could never do. You know, my wife always says that I'm the professional's best friend. I can turn a minor repair into a major construction project. But it's the ability to communicate that makes all the difference. You know, your business is branding. You got to communicate that brand, right? Absolutely. They got to know who you are.
Absolutely. So if you're just joining in, or you joined in maybe a little earlier with Fred Miller at No Sweat Public Speaking, you can visit his website at nosweatpublicspeaking.com. So Fred, I think there's a couple of points I want to circle back on. Number one, I agree. You've got to surround yourself with other professionals. And the example you gave was the editor. Having written a couple of books and working with an editor, if I didn't have an editor, my books would have been a disaster.
Now, did you have that same experience? You felt like an idiot when they said that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's how I felt.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly convinced that editing is a skill set that I don't have, but others do, and I just defer that work to others. And then number two, the person that hired you because they saw other people advance. I think it's important to note that you can advance your career not just on skill, but your ability to communicate effectively. Meaning, it's not the superior artist that's going to win the big price tag for their art. It's going to be the artist that somehow finds a niche and communicates effectively. The people that are on top 40 radio, are they necessarily the best musicians in the world? Probably not, but they're at the top because they found a way to, whether it's through shock or being sexy or whatever it is, they found some way to rise to the top regardless of skill or lack of.
Well, here, let me tell you a story, because you just told a story. It reminds me of one. I spoke to a real estate association once, real estate investors, and the president was a really good speaker. And I went up to him afterwards and I complimented him. I said, "Boy, you're really good." I said, "What's your day job?" And he said, "Well, I'm an engineer at Boeing." And we both chuckled, because you don't think about engineers as being dynamic speakers. They're left-brain people.
Right.
And left-brain people are usually not that way. He said, I know. He says, left brain engineer. He says, "I am very fortunate. I'm an engineer, but I also have the ability to communicate. That's why I'm the team leader." And he said, "Honestly, Fred, every one of the guys that I'm the team leader of, the guys on my team, they can do circles around me with their work. They know far more than I do. But because I can communicate, I'm the leader." And you see that I told that story to so many people. They say, "Oh yeah, that's my boss." I know, I've forgotten more than he knows, but boy, he's got that gift for gab. He can communicate with people. He just, I wish I had that. But you've seen that, haven't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think the great takeaway is that if you want to advance your life, your career, like I'll see this with doctors. They'll go, "Well, I need more doctor degrees. I need to learn more about doctoring. I need to learn more about nutrition." And I go, "You need to lean on the soft skills, quote unquote, communication, your ability to come across effectively, leadership, these, how you negotiate. All these soft skills is really the critical skills, particularly now that we're on Zoom and we're judging you on how you present."
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You got it. I mean, that's it. You've got to be able to communicate or your job will suffer. And it doesn't matter what that job is. Here again, you could be the best HVAC guy, but you're not going to become a supervisor unless you can communicate. And management knows the value of that. And a lot of times those people are the last contact with customers.
Mm-hmm.
So the price might have been good. They might have done dynamite work, but if the guy's a jerk, they're not going to get referred. And with all the social media these days, get on Yelp and Nextdoor, and that company will be out of business. I mean, bad word spreads quicker than good word.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even you bring up a good point, which is our communication skills or lack of will show up somehow in the business. Like you said, a bad Yelp review, a bad Google review, or if you're really good, as a good Google review, or good word of mouth, just because of your soft skills, your ability to communicate. So in 2021, here we are in February of 2021. Going forward, where are you taking your services, and kind of tell me how you're rolling out, like your future plans in 2021?
Well, I blog on a regular basis. Every 2 weeks I blog, and the learning is in the doing. You learn something. I used to blog once a week. I've been doing this since 2011, so I've got a lot of stuff. So my focus right now is rewriting that elevator speech book. I'm going to have to rewrite the first book, No Sweat Public Speaking, also, because I have learned so much since writing those books. All this Zoom stuff, I've got to get into there. I'm looking forward to doing more coaching. I'm looking forward to doing in person, I guess eventually, but certainly presenting by Zoom too. But if you really want to learn something, and I think this is important too, teach it.
Yeah.
I learned that. If you go to med school, one of the things they tell you is see one, do one, teach one. So start a meetup. I teach at community college, just a continuing education, 3 nights. And I never got any teaching course when I went to college. My wife was a teacher. But when you teach something, you have to master it. And the nice thing about public speaking, it's a skill you can learn. And let me tell you a story. It's worth telling. I got a call a number of years ago from an OBGYN. She was moving from New York to St. Louis. Terrible fear of public speaking. I could hear it in her voice, and she told me, she said, this is really a challenge because I'm going to have to present to my colleagues. I'm going to be teaching a class. Can you help me? I said, I don't know, doctor. Can I ask you a few questions? She said, sure. I said, well, you're a doctor. You're an OBGYN, right? She says, yeah. I said, that means you deliver baby boys and baby girls? She goes, yes. I said, well, have you ever delivered a baby public speaker? And she kind of chuckled, said, no, I haven't. And I said, let me ask you another question. You're a doctor, you're an adult, you've dealt with death, part of life. Do you know anyone who's passed away giving a presentation? And she said, no, I don't. I said, doctor, you just proved something. Yeah, there's not a public speaking gene that we're either born or not born with. It's a relatively safe activity to engage in. But somewhere between birth and death, it's a skill we can learn. And I think that goes for everyone. You can learn those skills. You know, some people have you've got it. That gift for gab. You're a good interviewer. People aren't born with those, but they can learn some of those skills and do much better at them, which will help them immensely. And you're right. It's all those soft skills. You know, there's a lot of geniuses who are the best of the best and nobody knows it.
Yeah, you got to make yourself known.
Yeah, a friend of mine once said that it's a hungry dog that doesn't wag its own tail. And getting up and speaking, being a leader, taking an opportunity to ask questions, just speaking is huge. You'll stand out from others because most people won't do it. It's still one of the biggest fears people have.
It totally is. Hey, I'm with Fred Miller. You can check him out at nosweatpublicspeaking.com. Hey, Fred, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. You added a lot of value to our community. You brought out some really good points, which is we've got to get our presentation and communication skills to advance our career. If you're going to write a book, get a great editor.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Right. And I like what you said earlier, which is professionals have coaches and amateurs do not. So you know, if you're looking to get coached on public speaking, reach out to Fred. You've seen his website. I'll put the link below when the video uploads to YouTube. I'll add the link there, also on the podcast. But you can also just type in Fred Miller, No Sweat Public Speaking into LinkedIn, and you will find his LinkedIn profile, and you can connect with him there on social media. So once again, Fred, thank you for being part of Growth Driven. And if you're listening to or watching Growth Driven, thank you so much for being part of this community. I'm making every effort to add value by bringing experts like Fred on the show to help you elevate your game so that you can have the prosperity that you want in your life, as well as the happiness and self-satisfaction. So until next time, we'll see all of you later.